This is Jackie with Idea Citizen. Join me for a conversation with Thomas Phillips, where we talk about organic growth and the power of search engine optimization. I am excited for this conversation. I think SEO is just like a really interesting, it's like the backbone of the internet or whatever. I mean, maybe that's not the right way to frame it up, but it's like, I think this is one of those things that people have lots of questions about and don't fully understand it. And so,
Yes,
let's
absolutely.
see where this conversation goes.
Yeah. And I think one of our biggest things is like showing people like really pay attention to SEO, because especially a lot of paid marketers from the paid world disregard it as just this like fugazi confusing thing, and you just suddenly appear on Google and that's it, and that's how it works. So it's an interesting one for us to break down with potential clients. Cool. Yeah, so introduction to me. My name's Thomas Phillips. We've been doing SEO for the last 18 or so years now. We've generated around $73 million in organic search revenue specifically. That has been by far the biggest traffic driver for all of our different brands that we've built. I've built, scaled, and exited 16 different brands online now. Yeah, and now we're running the agency alongside our other brands as well. So we're using our existing team to then help out other people to take their business to the next level from an SEO standpoint. So plugging into what they already have going on, which is awesome. So
I mean, you teased a little bit before. You teased a little bit beforehand about like kind of like the paid guys and everything, and the SEO guys, or the kind of the logic between these two, kind of not understanding, or maybe kind of like being at odds. But from my perspective and my vantage point, I feel like these two things kind of work in parallel. I think that. Or what my knowledge is that like a solid SEO strategy or a solid SEO framework actually makes any of your paid media, any of like those dollars go further, cheaper, better. But let's start with like, I like to start a lot of these conversations off just with definitions. How do you define SEO, which is ultimately search engine optimization?
Yeah, so search engine optimization is essentially getting your website to be as high as possible on Google, Bing, whatever search engine it might be, through optimizing the website for specific keywords. Yeah, in the organic section. So specifically when you scroll past the ads up at the top, which still a lot of people don't quite grasp, you then have the organic section underneath, which is you have to earn your way there. You cannot pay Google or whoever to be placed there. So it's the organic placements underneath the paid, essentially.
And why is it important in your opinion?
It's important for so many different reasons, one of which I love to discuss first, is the conversion rate. So the conversion rate we see is almost double in almost all instances in comparison to like push advertising. So like Meta as an example. So with Meta, you being shown an ad and hey, you want to buy this, versus with SEO or similar with pay-per-click, you're literally searching for that exact product that you want. Therefore, your intent to purchase is so much higher, which is why we really focus on transactional and commercial intent keywords at the agency, because those are the ones that bring the biggest ROI. We're not just interested in creating tons of blog content that never results in a sale.
Yeah.
From that point of view. Yeah.
So, I mean, because I feel like I don't want to go like heavy pitch and everything, but I feel like, do you guys, just so I can frame up some of my framework as well, like I've gone to your website, but like, do you guys actually like build out customer websites and then like create content for these words? Or is it like you take over like an existing, or you work with somebody with an existing website and then help work within the frameworks that's already been existed and build upon that?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so our target client is like 3+ mil in revenue. They've already been running for a good number of years. They probably have some kind of digital PR already, just organically. So there's like a solid frame and base for us to build on top of. So that's like our ideal client, essentially. And we're essentially taking their site, we're doing full keyword research to then work out like all the different keywords that someone might search to find their specific products. Because usually a website, the owner of the website has set it up, or their team or whatever, and they think that this is the only search term that people are ever going to search to find this particular product. But what we find is usually there's like 2 or 3 or even many more different search terms where people are meaning the same product.
Mm.
So then we're able to just open up the scope massively and create different collection pages around the same existing products that they already have. So the digital footprint per se can just be expanded massively. So we basically plug into what they already have, and then we're building out content and collection pages and optimizing product pages, collection pages, whatever they have on the site right now.
Yeah.
As part of the on-site strategy. And obviously we have off-site, which is all the link building, digital PR as well.
Yeah. I have it in my head that, or like that, my understanding, at least with SEO, is that it's like just ever evolving. It feels like on a day-to-day basis, like Google's doing something different. And I guess let's also interject. Are we kind of, at least for your purposes for search engine optimization, are we really focused on like Google, or like are we considering like the various different browsers, I guess? What's your mindset around that?
Yeah, so we mainly focus on Google because they have like the most advanced algorithm right now anyway. And usually if you're ranking very well on Google, you're ranking very well on Bing and Yahoo and MSN and whatever other search engines, someone might use, DuckDuckGo and all of that. Essentially they're built off of a similar framework. So that's really what we focus on, is Google being the main one. From a browser perspective, what do you mean by that exactly? You mean
A
like
good
Chrome
question.
versus Safari and stuff?
Yeah, I guess because I was like, that's, I appreciate the question, because that's where my head exactly was going, because I was thinking like, if you're using Chrome by default, you're searching what like via Google. If you're using, Bing, you're by default like searching within like Microsoft. DuckDuckGo, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that one, gosh, maybe it's something else, that like it doesn't actually keep your search data or something, like everything like gets deleted. I have no idea. So I don't know how that works in terms of like if it's just like purely on like that word that you're searching, or if there's any sort of like, if you've been cookied in any capacity to like get to a specific search. I realize I don't even fully know what my question is, but I'm like, I realize by you asking, I'm like, oh, I clearly don't know something. So what are you getting at?
All good. Yeah. I mean, DuckDuckGo is a pretty interesting one. I mean, it seems to be like a privacy browser, essentially, like what you said, Jackie, where it's, it doesn't necessarily remember what you were previously typing in and things like that. So it's kind of like, I guess, using an incognito window for Google, essentially. But we see a ton of traffic coming from DuckDuckGo. It's definitely not one to sleep on.
Interesting.
But really interestingly is like AI search. Like this is a big area that we are heavily focusing on.
Oh, you
Like
better
now that
believe I have
ChatGPT is
questions
obviously
on
connected
that.
to the internet.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean I've been diving in massively on this, and now we've even added it as part of our client dashboard where we're showing how much traffic they're getting and how many sales. Now
Okay,
that is the interesting
let's
bit.
go. So we're going to go into that as fully, because like, I mean, like perfect timing for that. But let's also start with historically, like what has been going on like with search engine optimization, and like, I mean, I don't know if you're a historian on search engine optimization, but like, where did this even start? Like, is it part of like like when the internet came to be, like this was part of the framework? Like, where did this start?
That's a fantastic question. I would have thought it started, I think Google was one of the first to do the whole search side of things. And I guess it just makes sense, really. Like you go on the internet and you want to find out some information fundamentally. So I guess that's where it started. And then people just realized that the same kind of queries or search terms were being typed in over and over again. And therefore, if you could monetize certain queries because the intent is there, then that's then something you could profit from. So I guess that's how the whole search engine optimizing for the search engine essentially came around. And yeah, that's where I got started when I was 13, my first proper website. So
Yeah, you're like, what
that's
is going
crazy.
on here? Let me dig into this. And so like like it's AI probably has been one of the most massive kind of changes to just generally, I think, technology in I believe, our lifetime. I guess we'll see, but that's what I'm assuming. Organic search today, and with the adoption and kind of the very fast world of OpenAI and AI and like the searches that are coming through that give credit where credit is due. It's like I appreciate how I am seeing responses when I use my AI client and everything that like where it's like giving or even like the AI results when you go into Google, like the quick links and everything. It feels like a version of this has been around for a bit of time where like, popular answers or whatever. And now it's kind of been rebranded as like AI response, but it ultimately is kind of like the same thing, but it feels like it's just getting better. So organic search today, if like, I mean, in comparison to what it was to what it is today, like what's changed?
Yeah, so in terms of Google, the main thing is the AI search bit at the top. What are they calling that? The generative search. And essentially, you're absolutely right. It's basically just the snippet up at the top that they've now just made a little bit more custom, essentially.
A good
So
rebrand.
I don't really see much has changed really. Like obviously it comes up with the first few sentences and you got like a little icon next to it and you can click it and it comes up with like two or three different links. Essentially it's exactly the same thing as what it was before. If anything, now you click on more links, which is even better from an SEO standpoint. So yeah, I'm excited the way that it's moving and shaking, which is great. But it really depends on the search term that you're searching as well as like if it's a question based search, then it usually comes up with the AI section up at the top. But then if it's more of a product base, you don't normally see that top section because it goes straight into shopping ads and then the organic products underneath. So yeah, that's what I see on Google. But the from an AI point of view, it is shifting
Yeah.
in an interesting way.
Okay, so even with AI adoption, like what is staying the same? Like, I mean, we talked about like kind of some of these results, but like, are you seeing like certain continuity points?
Yeah, I mean, everything below that new AI section has really stayed the same. I mean, Google just loves to test all the time. So, you might search something, the same query, and then you search it a week later. Excuse me. And, it has new images in there, or now it has a new other section in there, or whatever it might be. So they are testing a lot. They test all the time from that point of view, but fundamentally it's still pretty much the same. You still get the same list of results. The colors change ever so slightly, but yeah, it's still very much the same, which is great.
Cool. Yeah. Um, what would you say like are the big essentials of search engine optimization for any website?
Yeah, two things is going to be on page and off page SEO. So optimizing existing pages for certain keywords that you want to go after, and then link building to those pages and the entire website in total. So like I like to use the analogy. Obviously, I like Ferrari. So if if you have a beautiful car like a Ferrari and you have no gas in it, right? Let's say the car is the website. You might have the most beautiful looking website in the world. It's all built out. It's ready to go. But if you don't have any gas in it, it's just not going to go anywhere. So essentially, it's the same thing with SEO. You could have a beautifully built out website, but if you don't have any links coming in, Google is just like, well, it's just a website. So links are really the way that Google and search engines understand that this site is an authority on top of content, obviously. So that's why like a brand new website all of a sudden can't rank for some massive keyword straight off the bat. It has to build up over time. It has to get that reputation and authority. And the majority of the time that comes from links. And not all links are the same as well. So if you had a link from Forbes versus a link from, I don't know, your local knitting company or something, mum and pop shop, their power of website in comparison to Forbes is drastically different. So one link from Forbes is worth, a million of mum and pop ones up the street because they only probably have 10 links going to their website versus Forbes have millions. So yeah, there's different powers and levels of authority. So that's really a big thing that we work on. It's getting as many of those big links as possible, as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And at least for like on page stuff, I mean, I don't even remember where I first started hearing this, but I feel like it's been a big part. It's like mobile first, like build for mobile, mobile, mobile. And I think as of like, was it like 10 years ago or something, there was like these AMP pages and everything. I don't like, are these still things like mobile first, like websites? Like, can you talk to that a little bit? Or is that even a thing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So
does it matter?
Yeah, so the whole AMP pages or AMP, I'm not even sure how you say or pronounce that, but those ones I only ever see with like massive news websites, and even now I really don't see it that often at all. It seems to kind of be something that they've really phased out. But building for mobile first is absolutely critical. I mean, like if you look at, say you've had a website for 5 years and you look at the traffic split of desktop to mobile today versus 5 years ago, desktop would have been so much higher, whereas now it's switched and mobile is so much higher, depending on the type of website, obviously, what niche it's in as well as. So building for that first, from especially from like a design and conversion rate optimization perspective, is absolutely essential. So whenever we are creating content or building out a client's collection page in more detail, we are looking at, okay, how does it look on mobile first, because that is the main thing. Is it just a giant block of text that they have to scroll through to get to the products? That's going to decrease the conversion rate. We want to increase the conversion rate as much as possible. So it might look great on desktop, but it looks crap on mobile. So that needs to be fixed. So from that point of view, mobile is incredibly important from that side of things.
And I always like to have conversations also, it just provide people just with the actual like tactical tools that they can be doing versus like thinking about talking about things only from like a theoretical standpoint. So like what makes, I guess, a good, so you kind of spoke to like a website page where it's like don't lead with like, huge block of text and everything. I anticipate the reason that you're kind of speaking to that is because of bounce rates and everything, people not seeing immediately like what they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
and like leaving, which like dings your website. But like, what does having like a good mobile search engine optimized website, like what does that actually mean? Like what does that look like basically? Like three things that potentially somebody needs for like a good mobile optimized website. What is that?
Yeah, yeah. So it really depends. It depends on like the type of search term first and foremost. So like what we love to look at is like, say it was I don't know, what have I got in front of me? Buy metal bottle or metal bottles, right? White metal bottle is the keyword, right? That might result in a collection page or it might result in a product page. So we go to Google first and work out, okay, are the majority of pages collection pages or product pages? So that then tells us what we should be optimizing for that specific keyword. So let's say it's a collection page. Now, when we then look at a collection page on mobile, I want to be opening up the top 3 to 5 on my phone to see what they look like. And obviously this is a great way of doing it because you can then see, okay, their H1 title will basically be right at the top underneath their navigation bar. Like you'll see it straight away. Then there may or may not be a slither of text, like 1 to 2 sentences, basically just giving you context of what you're about to look at. And then immediately you'll then hit the products. So the best ones, they have the products up as high as possible. And the worst ones, if you click, say, onto the second page and you start clicking on some of them, you'll probably see giant gaps, lots of space, maybe the title, maybe there won't be a title, which is terrible for SEO. The products are all the way down there and there's a chunk of text in the middle. So things like that are absolutely essential. Like it's always worth thinking about the conversion rate side of things in tandem with SEO and with anything that you build on a website ever. So from a mobile perspective, like having optimized images that are compressed down, we like to have the rule under 400 kilobytes per image. Having the H1 on the page showing up at the top, not too big on mobile either, because there's no point in showing some giant text. Having optimized text directly underneath the H1, then going into the products, and then underneath the collections, underneath the products on the collection page is there where we build out a big chunk of text where we're going into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And depending on the client, that can then be hidden in like a show hide thing, as well as depending on if they would rather show it or if they don't want to show it because the rest of their website looks beautiful. Those are really the key points, especially on like a collection page.
Yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying, and I didn't even think, I don't know why I didn't even consider this before getting into this conversation, but like it feels like, I think everybody is in a constant battle, maybe against or with Amazon. I'm not really sure like how to frame that, but
Mm.
like as the keeper of say an online store or a product and everything that you're looking to sell. And I've worked in places where we've had Amazon presence, and it's like it's expensive to have your products on Amazon.
Mm.
from a revenue standpoint, you definitely like you behoove yourself to potentially actually sell direct to consumer. So what I'm kind of getting at is that like we're at this interesting time, and I know we're talking about search engine optimization specifically, but we're at this interesting time that I've been noticing where I think I don't have the data, but I would venture to guess just by my own purchasing patterns is that like that Amazon is actually starting to lose potentially some of the online I guess buy boxes. I don't know if that's like the right terminology to use here because like I mean, this also plays into, of course, like paid as well as like organic, but like with ads and content, of course, like running on like various different social media platforms, like I've found myself oftentimes where I go click on, say, like an ad or an influencer or something like looks interesting. I click on it and it's paid, whatever, but that's, I feel like less the point that I'm making. But like you click on it, you end up actually going to say like their product detail page and they have, I anticipate likely the likelihood is that it's actually housed by like let's say a Shopify. Maybe we should get into that pertaining to SEO. And then it goes into like you can purchase it through like this shop app or whatever that thing is, even I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like there's a little bit more of a democratization of like shopping patterns, and I do believe that like where I think Amazon has had like you've gone to Google to search, I think, in the past, and you've gone to Amazon to purchase. And I feel like right now, based on no facts, but just intuition, that I think that there's a change happening there. Like, yes, there's still the convenience of Amazon, but I think that a lot of organic and paid campaigns actually are kind of not pointing people to Amazon. Correct me if I'm wrong, or like, are you noticing any trends regarding like how people are actually shopping and purchasing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting one. We have, I think it's probably about 25% of our clients are also selling on Amazon, but they want to diversify and essentially like own the customer instead of Amazon taking 40% of the commission and not not giving you the customer essentially. So that's a really big one. But the um, oh my god, I've completely lost my train of thought.
That's
You were
okay.
saying
We'll
about
cut all this. We'll cut.
Amazon.
I'm noticing that Amazon less and less is
I was gonna say.
becoming kind of my, even just on my day to day basis, like less and less like my immediate purchasing option. And a lot of times when I click on something or if I search for something, it's not going to Amazon. I'm actually going to like a
Yeah.
completely different kind of purchasing funnel.
Yeah, yeah, and what I was going to say is what we've seen is that most people now are going to Amazon for like commodity based products, where it's I need a toilet brush. Okay, I'm going to buy it from Amazon, and they're all pretty much the same price. They're all pretty much the same product. Buy, it arrives same day or next day. Versus something that is a bit more of a niche product, where you really want to be sure that like the brand behind it are high quality and you want to have that additional confidence around it. I think that's really where then people are starting to search outside of Amazon, because a lot of those like niche companies were selling on Amazon a few years ago, and then they realized like, hold up, like our margins are absolutely being screwed here, or someone else is trying to rip our product off, or someone's brand jacking us, or whatever it might be. So then they're switching back. So we're seeing a lot of people moving back to Shopify and wanting to move away from Amazon again. So I guess it kind of shows really when you do a search for stuff on Amazon, I'm starting to find that there's like less and less of the stuff that I am looking for. So then I go back to Google and then I'm like,
Yeah.
sweet, okay,
Yeah, same.
here's all the brands that I was
Certain
after.
brands are just like no Amazon, and I think at the end of the day, there's this one brand that I recently been introduced to, and I'm like, it's high quality stuff, and they just ran like an amazing sale, and I'm like, there is no way that this product would have been available at this great of a price on Amazon, because ultimately, and I think
Mm,
what people don't actually know is that like if if you ultimately end up discounting something on Amazon, you're paying Amazon or something. Like there's like all these like loopholes and everything that like go into that like to allow a retailer to actually discount things. And I think I'd say actually like, inflation is a real thing, fine, but it's like I also feel like with the behemoth that Amazon actually is and the power that they have is that we're actually at the end of the day as like end consumers paying a higher price for whatever that product is just to get through like their various different like margins. We're not getting the best
yeah.
price. And then also Amazon on top of that too, they're like they'll reach out to you like, hey, we see that you're listing this product for a cheaper price and everything. It needs to match what we have. So like they have like these weird, I mean, they have these tools out there that like they're going to get theirs like one way or another. They're making sure that they are not being undermined. So I think that that's an opportunity for brands, to your point, that it's like to own the customer. Thomas, you kind of talked about like some basic kind of low hanging fruit really for mobile pages and just pages, product pages that like somebody may have. Like in terms of like best in class or like stretch goals for a website page or product detail page, like what is like, hey, if we can add on these a few key things, like you're like, oh my God, like we've like kind of trudged through like all the, like done the cleanup work and everything, but if we can like also do these things, like what is like best in class or like aspirational stuff that you like to see on pages or implement?
Yeah. So like PR links really are like best of the best of the best, like best possible thing that we can invest time and effort into. Not only for the link, which is essentially like rocket fuel for a website, especially if a link is going directly to a product page, like you bet your ass that page is going to rank very, very well. Usually most digital PR links, like big publications, they just link directly to the homepage, which is awesome if you have a good built out site structure and architecture. But that's one of the big things that we really love. And then when you then get featured in those publications, including those logos on the product pages and throughout the website, just increases conversion rate as well, as because again, you get that brand trust that you don't necessarily get with Amazon. So that is a really, really big thing that we love to focus on. I think in terms of like on page side of things, it kind of goes hand in hand with conversion rate optimization. I think this keeps coming back around to this, but it's super important. The more information that you can add around what the product is and who it's for and what it does, I think that is very, very beneficial. It seems quite obvious, but we have some clients' websites that we go through and it's just like the product page is just telling you about this is the length and this is it. It's very, very basic and it's not developed and very well built out, versus like what are the use cases for this particular product. And I think when you then start to dive in on that more, the conversion rate of that product is going to go up. There's going to be a lot less support questions, and everything around it is just improves. So Google's going to then see that you are the authority around that product because you have a lot more content on that page, and you're talking about all the different use cases, which means you're including a bunch of different keywords, and you are the authority versus someone who just has like a short description and then some reviews and maybe some other products, and that's it.
So when you talk about like use cases, you're like, let's say, I mean, I feel like we can't really use Ferrari because it's like if somebody's looking Ferrari, they're gonna just type in Ferrari. But like, let's say like if we were to make a product detail page for a Ferrari, it could be like great for like somebody that likes a car, like a fast vehicle. Like what would be a use case I'm thinking like somebody would go into for like a Ferrari?
Yeah, I'll give you an exact example. We literally had a call with a client last week about this same thing. So he sells like pumps and fountain pumps for lakes. Okay, so it was like based off of the horsepower. Okay, so it was like this is a 2 horsepower motor, and we're like, what does that mean? Like, I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
know exactly what that means, and you know what size of lake that can fulfill. So I was like, on each of these product pages, if it's a 1 horsepower, tell me the depth of the lake, tell me the size of it, tell me the acreage. Is it for outdoor? Is it for a certain state because it's too cold or it's too warm or whatever? All of those use cases add in there. And then he was just like, oh, that's a great idea. But then from a customer perspective, you're like, okay, I now know I need a 2 horsepower pump because I have a lake that's 2 acres or whatever the math is. So that is like the prime example of like people are uneducated. They know that they want and need this thing, but they don't know there's like 100 different pumps. Which one should I buy and why?
That's a really
So
good point because I
that's
think
really
like,
where the use cases come in.
yeah, no, that's a really good point because you think as like if anything, the manufacturer of the pump, you're like, well, these are just the specifications of this, but that ultimately doesn't take into consideration to exactly what you said, how somebody is using this. Like I recently did a bit of a remodel and I needed to get like a sewage injection pump. And I was like, you see all these things. I'm like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to be using. Like there's just like, here's
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
specification about this, but I'm like, so like, can we like talk about like scenarios, like how far does this thing work, like what, like does it, how far up does it need, like there's just additional information for like, and hey, and this is where it comes down to like, it's nice working with like an expert. In theory they should know it, but like um ultimately the best source of that truth in theory is going to be the manufacturer. They have tested it to what degree, like they know what the limitations are. And I think the last thing for anybody, whether it be like say a lake pump, you don't want people to be disappointed, because that's, I think, the worst experience, where you're like, oh, I purchased this 2-gallon thing expecting that it was going to service whatever, and it was never intended for that use case. And then you've kind of burned a potential bridge of like a customer, where it's like, no, 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 like this product can
Absolutely.
actually, it's very good, but you need in this different scenario. It's like what was it, like ask a bird to swim and a fish to fly and everything. It's like they're really not good at those things, but if you ask them to do the thing that they're good at, like they're going to excel. Do like reviews play into this at all? Like, sometimes feel like a little bit of a seedy part of like the internet, because it's like, are they real, are they fake, like where do reviews live in this?
Yeah, so from an SEO standpoint, we love reviews being on product pages, mainly because if the website theme has the correct schema, so basically the back end code, then it will then show that data inside of Google. So you'll search for that particular product, it will come up with the title, the description, the URL, and then it will then have the review stars, and then also other information about that website. So is it free shipping? Is it free returns, or whatever it might be? So having that extra data that comes up that's a completely different color, especially if you have a good set of reviews, your click-through rate to your position on Google is going to be a lot higher than somebody else's. So that's really a way, like, if you're sat at number 8 on Google and people start clicking it because you're the only one with review stars that are yellow that jump out at you, you're naturally going to start progressing up, because your click-through rate is going to be better than other people's. So from that point of view, we love reviews from that side of thing. Obviously, it increases conversion rate if the reviews are good. When you land on the page, it pads the page out more with more content. And if customers are talking about specific parts of that review, then again, your page looks more authoritative to Google from that side of things.
What's your take? So I've been seeing this trend where, I mean, even on Amazon, where you start, say, like a product page, like it'll have like beautiful, clearly like marketing imagery, and kind of like a move to including a little bit more like UGC or user generated content, that it's like, it's, the lighting sometimes isn't as great. And of course, this like depends like case by case, like what like the actual thing is that somebody's actually selling. But like, what's your opinion on like non-marketing kind of like, chef kiss type of images? Do they convert better, or do they, do they serve a different purpose? Like where do those live in kind of like somebody's website, or do they live there at all?
What do you mean by chef kiss
Oh, like
images?
well, like when I chef kiss images, I was kind of referring to like, perfect like marketing images, like, the product well lit on a white background and everything, but like you then get like, say, like a user generated image. And I guess I'm also like, this could be like a little more fashion related. It's like it's the picture with like the model, things pinned appropriately, like good lighting and like good makeup on the model, versus like, on a day-to-day basis, like people are looking in the mirror, they're taking selfies, like, hey, how does this outfit look, like for the purposes
Yeah.
of, say, a company building out their own website, and the value from a search engine optimization standpoint, like doesn't matter, like, marketing images versus UGC images.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good point. And I think the best practice of what we've seen is to have the premium Chef Kiss marketing images as the first images that you see, because especially throughout the website, it just kind of beautifies it. Everything is, the same white background, it's the same kind of lighting, it's the same color tone type thing. So from that point of view, it makes sense because it's easy to also compare products to each other. I think then when you click into the product page slightly further down, or where the review section is, definitely having UGC, user generated content, is 100% helpful, because sometimes the professional imagery doesn't show all the angles, or you might still have questions about like, well, how do I use this or whatever. And there might be a video of someone using the widget, which is fantastic. Or there might be someone, yeah, as you said, from like a fashion perspective, like, okay, how does that look in a setting, or different body types, different things like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
definitely, I would say essential from a increasing conversion rate standpoint.
Would you, okay, so like you could kind of talked about like I think was it keywords, or like I think there's like metadata with like images specifically, like would these images be treated differently, or what is like a cohort of images for say the specific product, do they all get the same information? Do you specify it? Like what does somebody do?
Yeah, so from a image alt text perspective, which is basically the way that kind of essentially the search engine can tell what the web image is about. Obviously, it's way more advanced these days where it can literally tell what the image is, but you're giving more context to it. And a lot of people miss this out. Like they just don't, regardless of any image on the website, they don't add in the image alt text, which describes exactly what that image is about. And there's then just like a massive gap in traffic that you can potentially get, because then that image starts to rank inside of the image search, and sometimes it even comes up organically in images inside of just a normal Google search. So the amount of extra traffic that you can get from being descriptive in either your professional images or your UGC images or videos, whatever, is a huge uplift. So this is one of the first things that we work on when we onboard a new client, is we go through and name and redo their image alt text, because they can just see an increase in traffic, and it's just free traffic essentially from that point of view. And usually it's high intent traffic because someone's searching for that product and they want to visually see it.
Are we, you kind of tease this out a little bit, but video, are we at the point that like that AI can read, or at least search can read the content of a video, or is there still an additional description or a transcript of like what that dialogue in the video that it entails? Is that still needed as like text on a page?
Yeah, that's a great question. From a AI point of view, I'm still waiting for the day that ChatGPT or Claude.ai I can just upload a video and it can just transcribe it. That would be great. But I still have to use some, online free service, and I guess it's doing it in the way that you said, where it's kind of watching the video and transcribing it. So I presume the technology is out there. It just hasn't necessarily been integrated into the kind of AI that we're used to using at this point in time.
Yeah.
From that side of things. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah. No, and not to get into like, your secret sauce or anything, but I am kind of curious that, we have tons of like when you're working with your clients, are you building out custom websites all the time? I mean, we have like so many of these different website tools out there. There's of course Shopify, and I don't know if somebody can actually build a full website there as opposed to just kind of like the shopping component. But like I've been jumping into Canva. Canva has website functionality. Are those various different, like, is I guess like what's your takeaway, or what's your opinion from like custom build to like somewhat like off the shelf options for people getting started?
Yeah. So most of our e-commerce clients, well, pretty much I'd say 99%, all on Shopify, whether that be the normal Shopify or Shopify Plus, or it's Shopify Plus and they have a headless development, so everything's just so much quicker. So that is really the main thing that we work in, and our developer is a Shopify expert as well, so she is just fully integrated into that. So our whole team are specced up on Shopify because that is the main thing. A lot of people are moving from things like Magento, or I think it's now called Adobe e-commerce, over to Shopify because of the ease of build, and absolutely you can build a full-blown website from Shopify for sure. So yeah, that's the main thing that we work on. That's our recommendation for things. It's so easy, plug and play with Klaviyo, or tons of different apps, whatever you need doing. There are a few SEO things that you do need to do and adjust as one of the first things, because Shopify still doesn't quite get it right for some reason. But yeah, apart from that, it's pretty solid, which is great.
What are you surprised still today? Like after, I mean, SEO has been around for a little bit. People have been shopping online for quite a bit of time. What are you still surprised seeing that like you're like, why are people doing this? Like it's like is there anything that like boggles your mind?
From like a website owner perspective for SEO, do you
Yeah,
mean? Or?
sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I mean, if there's another kind of version of that question that you think kind of sparks your interest, that like, please, go long.
Yeah, I think well from an SEO perspective as a like a brand owner on Shopify, there's some what are like the most common things that we see? A big one, okay, is just deleting product pages. So there's a huge thing that we have to educate almost every single client around is like either when your product goes out of stock, please do not set the product as draft or just straight up delete the whole product page
Oh
because
yeah.
what we found before is we were making great progress with people's websites and then we were like, why is the traffic just plateaued?
Oh
And then
no.
we go in and we're like, what the hell? Like these 5 products are now not here at all. It's just a 404 page error. We're like, what the hell is going on? They're like, oh, yeah, that product's out of stock, so we just like set it as a draft, which basically just removes it from the website. We're
Oh
like,
no.
oh, like you're losing so much traffic. Now you've completely lost that placement because Google's just gone, okay, it's out of stock. We don't want to give our users a bad experience, so we're not even going to include it in the top three.
Oh
We're just
no.
going to completely drop it out. So they lose a ton of traffic. It's a massive negative signal on a website. But from like a brand owner perspective, you're like, well, of course I don't want it on my website anymore. It's completely out of stock. So it makes sense, but it's like educating them of what
Absolutely.
happens
I
from
mean,
that
once
side of
they're already
things.
on your website,
So
just
that's a
serve
big
them
thing.
up a similar product or something different, but like don't just be like SOL, like good luck next time. Like you're like or at least like email capture if this item will potentially be back in stock or here's
Exactly.
some other items, like anything but like just saying go try somebody else to purchase this product. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a really big one. You touched exactly on that, Jackie. So what we recommend is if the product is just like temporary out of stock for a day, just leave the product and just have it as out of stock. That's absolutely fine. If it's going to be out of stock for like a week or even longer, or if it's never going to come back, just have the wish list thing, like what you said, the email opt-in to basically just say, hey, I'm interested in this product, and put my hand up. And what we've seen is when the product comes back in stock, the conversion rate on those emails that are automatically sent is like 25% plus, which is fantastic. So it then helps give the client data on like, oh, actually people do want that, so I do need to restock it from that side of things. So that's one of the biggest things is like just deleting pages that have a ton
Don't
of
delete
traffic and
anything.
links as well. Yeah, God, it's just
Well, let me ask
one
you
of
this.
one of the
Yeah,
one of the
like
many mistakes.
don't delete the page, but then my question is like, so let's say like, okay, this item say is never going to be in stock again. Can you repurpose that page like for a different product that's similar, like and still make it unique? Like I guess my question, because I guess like if you're repurposing a page, in theory, you're going to delete or at least change a lot of the content. So is there value for making slight modifications or adjustments for something that's fully out of stock, never coming back, discontinued, and making it into a new page? Say like it was a white dress and now it's going to be a red dress, but it's still a dress at the end of the day. Would that be a fix?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the tech world do this very well because tech moves so quickly, and computers and GPUs update a lot. I've seen it before where I've gone in to search for like a computer screen that a friend has recommended. Because we just moved to the States, so I was like, okay, cool. So I went onto Google. I'm searching for it. The first ones that come up, it's now a discontinued product. It's only like a year old or something. But you go onto the product listing and it says discontinued, but then it comes up in like a yellow box like, hey, we now actually have an updated monitor. Click
Yeah.
here to find it. And
Yeah.
it just links straight to it. So you're like, sweet, fantastic. That brand retained its traffic
Right.
for that particular search term. And then it sent me across to a product that was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And it
Because
internally linked. So it sent the power of what was already there, which is fantastic. So they did that exactly 100% how you'd want that to work
yeah,
from that side of things.
absolutely.
Really just depends on the products and the niche for things, but
And
yeah.
so what's coming into my head is like actually voice search. And I don't really know what my question is pertaining to that, but like SEO and websites, like does voice ultimately just get converted immediately into text and words on the page? Like is voice search and building out your website, is there anything different that somebody needs to do to rank for those types of searches?
Yeah, great question. So usually voice search just pulls from like the top positions, or now it pulls from like the AI section up at the top, just because it's the easiest thing. It's already essentially summarizing what you're asking, so it's just going to read that out to you, and then it might list a couple sources. Like according to this website, it says da 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 da. So having and this is really where it comes back around to like technical side, technical SEO is something we definitely haven't touched on, but that is the first thing that we go in and work on, because there's thousands of errors. It's insane with most Shopify stores straight off the bat. So having a site that is like very, very easy for Google to go in, crawl and access and understand, okay, this page is about this page is about that, and not have a whole ton of confusion is very, very important, so that it can just go in, okay, cool, here's the content straight away. There's not massive bloat of code it has to try and get through to find it. It's just very light, very easy. It can grab that piece of content and then obviously it can speak it back to you.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I guess was that like your consolidated version of technical SEO, or do you want to go into technical SEO a little bit more? Because I don't even know what to ask about that.
Yeah, it does get very confusing. That's the thing. I think most of it, or like a big parts and big sections of it, we have kind of covered. Let's say, for example, like the massive images on the site, or parts of the website being no indexed when they should be indexed. So Google is coming up against them and being like, "You've told me not to crawl this part of the website. Okay, I'll follow that." So it just de-indexes big chunks of the site. There's just a ton of different errors and issues that can come up with that. Like, let's say, another big thing is clients love to rename product URLs, but then not select the redirect button on inside of Shopify. So it changes the URL, but they might have 5 blog posts that are linking to the old URL. And now Google's coming up against a brick wall. Again, negative signals are being sent out. Also, if a user or a reader goes through and clicks those links and hits a 404 page, it's like, oh, great. That's not that doesn't look very good for your brand, as well as exactly, yeah. So fixing a ton of like on-site issues like that, and then we have to rerun it every month as well because of all the issues that come in every single month. It's inevitable, but
yeah. And
it happens.
I am kind of curious about like how even within, say, the same country, there's a lot of people that speak different languages. Ultimately, their searches can kind of be in their native tongue or a variety of different languages. How are there like language barriers that like need to be considered when building out a website, and how does that play into this?
Yeah, Shopify does a really good job with Shopify Markets and their like translation app. So essentially, what you can do is go, um, what's a prime example of this? Okay, so we have a client in who ranks in Germany, and German and Austrian German are slightly different.
Okay.
So for that, you have a different URL structure,
Mm-hmm.
and the German Austrian site is then adjusted slightly for that particular dialect. So there's like slight changes with things. And then Google can then also pick up that it is different. It can see the URLs and everything like that. So it ranks each of those URLs in those specific countries.
Okay.
So that's by far the best way of handling it. My absolute recommendation, if anyone's listening to this, is have it set up within the subfolder, not a subdomain. So what I mean by that is instead of having like for Germany, it would be de.mywebsite.com. I'd rather have mywebsite.com/de. And the reason for that is you're containing the site within the site.
Right.
So when you have a subdomain, the myth is that Google sees that as a brand new website. Whereas when it's inside of the same website, like /de, it's viewed as the same website. So it piggybacks off the power and ranks quicker. So we always like to say to set it up in that way.
Yeah. What are some I love talking about myths. Like what are some other myths within like SEO, or at least that you've come across with through any of your calls?
ChatGPT content, I think, is a big one.
Oh yeah.
I think some
I love
clients are
it.
like,
I'll say that.
I'm
But
like, yeah. One of my first questions on like the discovery call is like, okay, let's say they have, I don't know, 100 pieces of blog content, right? It's like, how much of this was written just with ChatGPT and just upload, copy, paste? And they're like,
yeah,
all
all
of
of
it?
it.
I'm like, okay, if we cannot rewrite this, we cannot work with you because it is such a risk.
Yeah.
Like we have seen big websites that are basically just all created with AI content. There's not really any kind of human intervention on it, and they just get slapped by Google. So Google at the start was like, we don't want you to write AI content. And then they switched their guidelines, and then it was like, oh, actually, that's fine. So a ton of people started to build websites just all around, just straight output of ChatGPT content. And then they switched it again. They were like, oh, actually,
Just
we're gonna
kidding.
just like penalize everyone for that. yeah, totally. Yeah, now they're kind of in some weird middle ground with it. So we're like, right, we are not even taking the risk at all. We have fantastic writers in house and editors. So we're like, cool. We're still going to do it the old school way because we don't want to take the risk, especially as everyone wants to exit their business at some point, or basically everyone wants to exit at some
Yeah,
point.
and
So
then the question is like,
we
who
want
owns the
SEO to
content?
stay around. Yeah, well, yeah, we want SEO to stay around for as long as possible. We want it to be that solid concrete base as opposed to building it on sand using AI content that you have no idea if Google's going to hit you or not.
That's a really good point. You're going to avoid problems just writing your own content, period. Of course, you can, I mean, let me know what you think, but I think you can use AI to help, like maybe with a little bit of framework or maybe some discussion points. But at the end of the day, you actually need to write it using your thinking. I personally actually really like to utilize AI where I'll actually write something out and then I just put it in AI, like, hey, clean this up for like, make this more succinct or grammar or whatever. I wonder what Google would say regarding that. I have absolutely no idea. I don't see myself changing that anytime soon. Like if somebody were to if somebody were to build out like their PDB product detail page for a product and they write it and potentially use AI to help edit it, do you feel like that is that questionable, or is it like, let's just not, like, I anticipate from like you as a company, you're like, I don't even want to touch it, but like from like a day-to-day, somebody just starting out, like, do they, like, is that like a C minus? Like, what's your takeaway on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you have written the content and then you're asking ChatGPT to improve / rewrite it. It's then still adding that AI flair onto it, which is like sometimes quite easily you can spot it. It's talking about embark on this journey and in this way, all of that kind of stuff. I would want to flip it on its head and do it the other way around. So if you absolutely had to use AI for whatever, I would want to be creating the content using that and then having an expert or whatever going through it with a fine-tooth comb and changing as much as you can essentially, but using that as like a 20-30% base essentially, because then your end result is going to be less AI on that side of things.
I'm tracking. What other myths? Anything else that like you've come across that you're like, oh my God, this is like, it makes you laugh?
Yeah, I actually had a really interesting one the other day on a call where they were adamant that their SEO they didn't need SEO because they had a Shopify app to do it all for them. And I was like, okay, this is going to take a long time to try and educate.
Can I tell you though,
what
like,
SEO is?
I was like, to some degree, I'm like, you're in on the joke. Like, I'm not fully in on the joke. So you're saying AI, so Shopify apps do not provide SEO. Is that what you're saying?
Well, SEO is so much more than, a lot of people think that SEO is literally just like, okay, I'm adding some content and that's pretty much it. It's like content on the site, right? But there's two main sides to SEO. There's the on-page optimization, which content is a part of, and then obviously you have the off-site optimization, which is link building, digital PR, everything around that. So that is really where like 70% of the work comes in. Like where the investment goes, where the time goes, is the off-site link building that an app just cannot do.
Yeah.
So Shopify apps are essentially just, from the ones that I've seen, they're using ChatGPT and they're kind of reshuffling your title and trying to optimize it a little bit better. Like fundamentally, if you haven't done the keyword research for that product and it's just kind of coming up with some suggestions based off of some other AI content that you've put on the page, it's just going to come up with something that it thinks is best.
Yeah.
Versus actually, if I sat down and I did full keyword research for that particular product, I found the main keyword, secondary keywords, all of these different things, and I integrated that into the SEO title, and I included the main keyword at the start of the title where the most weight goes for that particular keyword, and then I integrated secondary keywords, etc. Like, that goes so much further than just like having an app just try and automatically do something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's a good start. But if we were to go into a site, we'd be deleting that and doing everything again.
Yeah. No, it feels like the app ultimately ends up being the was it like it's the beer version, and then like what you guys ultimately end up doing is like the white glove component. There's somewhere to start, but then there's always an opportunity. There's so many things to build too.
Yeah.
And I anticipate, I mean, you probably talked to two different SEO people with the expertise, and they're also going to have a difference of opinion on how to actually go about something as well. So I guess I wanted to say, is there maybe like, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to touch on, or that you would recommend that maybe we're omitting?
I think just the AI search side of things is super interesting.
Okay,
I see like that's really where a lot of it's going.
Let's talk AI search then. I mean, let's go into detail. Like, what are you seeing there?
Yeah. So what we're really starting to see, and as I mentioned before, like what we're now starting to track is the inside of our own SEO dashboard is the traffic that is coming from these AI search engines. So, for example, like literally just ChatGPT. That's one of the main ones. And the super interesting thing is the sales that it is making already. So, like one of our clients, like last month, they made like $6,500 revenue from ChatGPT sales, and I was like, this is going so much quicker than I expected. Like small revenue, but from something like that, it's freaking awesome. And I've really invested a decent chunk of time into understanding how these curated lists are essentially built out. So let's say, you're searching best SEO agency for D2C. We come up first on ChatGPT for that. And when you then understand, okay, well, how is that possible? Like, why are we coming up first? Or like some of our clients, how are they now coming up first for different searches, even when it's very custom? And there's a number of different things. Either it's literally just going straight to Google, doing the search itself, and just pulling in, this one's first, this one's second, this one's third. Cool, there you go. Or seemingly half the time that's what's happening. And it's literally, you can ask it, well, how did you find this data? And it just admits to you like, oh, I just did a Google search and here's the results. So obviously ranking first in Google is absolutely critical for being first on that list. The second way, which is super interesting, which I kind of see it more so going towards, especially if you have a longer conversation, is it is pulling in, and I'm using the best analogy as well, again, like best whatever product it might be, is it's using a combination of multiple things. So it's going to authoritative websites that ChatGPT deems as authoritative. It's then crawling them, looking at the top products and pulling them out and using them in the list. But on top of that, it's then looking at other sources where it's mentioning the unique selling point of that product. So let's say, for example, I was looking for, I don't know, a hunting knife, and I wanted it to be with a leather handle, right?
Sure.
It wouldn't give me the search results for ones that had a steel handle, because it's looking at the unique selling points of those particular products. But the more unique selling points it has, it's pulling them in, using that in its list building essentially, and then it's providing you with that. So it's going, this one is the best because of USB 1, USB 2, USB 3, etc. And by having those unique selling points on multiple websites, for example, you're getting different links from different websites and it's mentioning that product more and more. It's then looking at all of those associations through essentially what we're doing from link building, and it's pulling all that together and then creating its list. So to kind of conclude, the more links that you have on the more authoritative websites, the more unique selling points that you're mentioning across it. That's essentially how ChatGPT is creating its lists in one of the ways that it's doing it. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting, which is awesome because, as I said, link building is one of the main things that we work on. So it's great to see that that is now having an effect outside of just ranking on Google, which is
Oh,
awesome. So,
that's wild. That's so, and I guess like, where do you, if you were to guess where this might go, I mean, the possibilities are endless, but like, where do you think, like, I don't know, if you were to make a wager today, like, where do you think this is going from like AI search components?
I think it's only going to become more and more popular. I thought it would have gone quicker than it has, but I've realized that because we're in the online marketing space, there's so many people who use it, and that it's, in terms of like how to use it, is developing very fast. But I only realized that the mass adoption of it is nowhere near like the average person using it, and it's only because we're in that world that we
Yeah,
seem
yeah.
like, oh my god,
This is the
everyone's
only
freaking
thing that's
using it,
happening. Yeah.
you know. Yeah, and I like speak to my barber, I speak to my parents and stuff, and I'm like, have you used ChatGPT? It does and this, and they're like, the fuck is that? Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
would
yeah.
I don't trust that, and like even the level of trust isn't even there yet, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is not
That
going
is,
anywhere near as quick as I thought, which
yeah.
is interesting.
That's a great way, I think, to like check your own biases where you're like
Yeah.
my world, I'm only thinking about AI and what's the possibility and what's happening here. But it's like when you get out of your little bubble a little bit, it's like you realize that like, oh, this is my own experience is not the same as other people. And I mean, some people still somehow don't even, there are a subset of the population that don't even have like, smartphones. I think I think as an online marketer, you're obviously not like, you're not like marketing to them specifically, but it's a good reference point that like your experience is not the same as someone else's. Yeah. Oh, this is exciting. I'm
Yeah,
super excited to see like where
absolutely.
this may go. I've more honestly, I have more questions than I started this conversation with. I feel like you may have something else that you wanted to say though.
Yeah, I just feel like that is the way that things will go. Like a more personalized search, just obviously makes a lot of sense. And actually, there's another really interesting point that we have completely changed our strategy on. So like if you asked me like a year or so ago what your content strategy would have been like, I would have said we create blog posts on tons of different topics and tons of different questions. But now we don't see that as being a good ROI, because people are naturally progressing to things like ChatGPT, where you can get a much more personalized answer compared to trying to go to Google and then clicking on a thing, and you hit a load of ads and you're like, oh, I'm not getting the reply that I want. So for like simple question based stuff, I definitely see people migrating over. Like I myself, I don't use Google for that. I use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it might be, especially with the conversational piece of ChatGPT, which is cool. So for those kind of things, we're now like, there is zero reason for us to create content around a ton of different questions, because that's not a great use of anyone's investment.
Hmm.
So we are now chunking down the content that we're creating to literally just problem, and then the client's product is the solution.
Sure.
We're focused on content where the question or the blog post results in a sale. We want ROI from it, essentially. We don't just want to, fill the website with fluff. So that's been a really interesting shift in the last 12 months across to
So
not
are you
investing
saying
in
that you're
that and
making you're
seeing where
right?
it's going.
Are you saying that you're writing shorter content then? Like, let's say you went from initially like, I don't know if this is ridiculous, but like 2,000 words to like 1,000? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, great question. We're essentially just writing a lot less content, and we're now way more focused on product pages and collection pages that actually result in a sale. So if we can rank them, let's say they're 10th on Google, which is like gets like 2.4% of all the clicks for that particular search term, and then we can get you up to first, that's then 40% of the clicks.
Yeah.
So it's a much better ROI for us to focus on those kind of keywords where the intent of that product is literally to purchase that product,
Yes.
than us creating 100 blog posts that are just like a post-purchase question, like how do I
Yeah.
clean my hunting knife? You've already bought a hunting knife at that point. You probably don't want another one.
Yeah, yeah.
at that point in time versus like, what is the best hunting knife for XYZ, or I don't know, whatever the problem solution article might be that you're kind of creating.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I get what you're saying there, because it's like, if your purpose is ultimately to get people to convert and purchase something, it's like that is ultimately what you are going to be ranked on from a ROI standpoint. But yeah, like if you've exhausted every single possible thing and link building and everything from like that product detail page, and it's like, then yeah, let's also do those things. But like we're not there yet, because I think that there's constant kind of innovation and change and building that out further. Um uh
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there like, okay, we've kind of future trends. We talked about like kind of what's happening now. Like Thomas, I feel like we're kind of at the end here.
Yeah, no, I think
So Thomas, how can people find you? Please provide like your socials and where people can follow you and D2C.
yeah. So just head over to dtcseoagency.com, or any of the socials. I think it's all just under Thomas M.R. Phillips. Then you can find me on there. Shoot us a message, or apply to work with us if you want to become a client. And see you on a call.
All right, perfect. Yeah. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Join the Idea Citizen LinkedIn group and share this episode with a friend.